Hey guys, it's Danny. Welcome to another episode from our Orchid Care for Beginners series. Today we're going to talk about household items that we can use with our orchids, and actually they make our life a lot easier when maintaining these beautiful plants. So these are products that I personally have used for a decade almost at this point. These stuff that I'm going to show you have made my life so much easier, and they're just household items. Well, before we start, I'll be a little honest with you guys. I've already filmed today's video and it was a different subject. Today's subject that I planned was regarding tips on how to obtain a ton of flowers on your Phalaenopsis orchid. And then I realized most of my Phalaenopsis are still in bud. They just have very few flowers open. Wouldn't it be much prettier if I actually waited for the buds to open to make that video? Yes, it would. So stay tuned for next month's video on how to get a ton of beautiful flowers on your orchids. The video is already planned. I just need to wait for my models to prep for the shoot. Today's video, together with this entire series, is of course sponsored by rePotme.com, who offers you everything that you could possibly need to properly take care of your orchid. From potting mixes to pots, fertilizers, and all sorts of accessories, they have it all. And not only for orchids, but also for other houseplants as well, such as succulents and cacti. So I'll link you to their website down below in the description. Feel free to check them out at any time. I'll also mention the products that I personally have used and really liked, some of which I used before our collaboration and I would go back to over and over again, such as the MSU fertilizer, best fertilizer I've used before our collaboration. So do check them out down below. And with that said, let's continue with the video. I have my list as always. Let's start with something that changed the game for me 10 years ago. Oh my goodness, the best discovery that I made. And this is the very modest hydrogen peroxide that you can find at any human pharmacy. Generally speaking, I personally find this at the supermarket as well. Downside, I cannot find big quantities. Upside, I don't need to go to the pharmacy. Well, what do we do with hydrogen peroxide? Honestly, a multitude of things. The main use for me is sanitizing the root system. Early on in my orchid hobby, I started to have so much trouble with pest snails. Yes, they exist, particularly in the EU, and particularly with orchids such as oncidiums. They would already come with these snails in their pots. The downside is, no matter how well I washed the root system at the sink, I could not get rid of the snails entirely or their eggs. And I've tried for almost a year all methods that I could find on the internet. I've even had special bait for the snails. No, they didn't have it. Bush snails were only attacking the root tips, and at some point it got so bad that I actually lost orchids. Back then I was purchasing orchids very discounted. I didn't have a lot of budget for them, and I would build my experience by saving them. Well, I have lost so many orchids due to those bush snails because they were munching the fresh new roots. And if that happens on a stressed orchid that you're trying to save, pretty much is game over. So in the end, through trial and error, I sprayed the root system with hydrogen peroxide 3%. The concentration 3% can be found at the pharmacy as it is, case in which all you need to do is open the bottle, pour it in a spray bottle, no need to dilute it with anything, just use it as it is, 3%. If you find higher concentrations, such as 6%, you would need to dilute it. So 1 part 6% to 1 part water, and if you find hydrogen peroxide of 9%, you dilute it with 1 part hydrogen peroxide 9% to 2 parts water. You need to obtain a 3% concentration. That's what I've been using, and I'm comfortable recommending this concentration, not comfortable with anything higher, hence why I would always dilute it to 3%. So the solution needs to be in a spray bottle, and what we do is spray the entire root system, not the top of the leaves, not under the leaves. It has no effect on other pests, insects in particular. It only has effect on soft-bodied things such as snails and slugs. So we spray the root system really well. You'll start to hear a fizz, that is absolutely normal. Some foaming, again, that is absolutely normal. No need to rinse, no need to do anything. Pot the orchid as it is. Poof, no more snail issues for the past 10 years, I swear. I'll be sure to link down below in the description multiple links that show the use of this substance so you can better understand for the sake of keeping this video as short as possible. But hydrogen peroxide is my absolute favorite substance to use, the thing that kept me in the hobby. If it wasn't for this, I would have given up because of those snails. I'm sure of it. So I owe everything I have today to this little bottle. Not this one, but the solution itself. How funny is that, right? Next up, we're gonna take things in no particular order. Alcohol. It can be isopropyl alcohol or ethylene. Each region of the world has a different type of alcohol as rubbing alcohol. What do we do with alcohol? We sanitize things, which is very, very important, particularly if we have multiple orchids or multiple plants. Whenever we cut something on our orchid, whether it's a leaf tip that got infected or a flower spike that is almost done, it is very important to sanitize our cutting tools, which can be scissors or other things. Because orchids and other plants do have diseases that can be passed on to other individuals. And cutting tools sadly pass one of the worst things you can have on your orchid, a virus. Viruses are not treatable. At least at the moment when I'm making this video, there is no known cure for a virus other than the immune system of the plant fighting it off. So what we need to do is prevent virus transmission. Sanitizing cutting tools is so important, I cannot even explain. Typically, alcohol will do the job. Some people go the extra mile and actually use bleach. If you know you have a case, maybe you'd want to go the route of bleach to sanitize tools. Typically speaking, alcohol does a great job as well. This is 70% that I'm showing you, which is fine, but if you want to be extra, use the 96%, which I have somewhere around. And always sanitize your tools in between cuttings, or in between orchids, or plants, should I say. It will save your orchids without you even knowing. So always have alcohol around you. Next up, cinnamon. You don't have it with me, but I do have footage to show you. Ground cinnamon that you can find at the supermarket. It is very, very useful to seal off wounds. Whenever we cut a leaf, there is a chance that that leaf can get reinfected with pathogens where we cut it. So, in order to seal off the leaf and to prevent pathogens from reinfecting our leaves, we can put ground cinnamon on that cut wound. And I assure you, through trial and error, it does make a difference. I've had some infections on some leaves in the past, and I did not use anything. I just let that layer of cells dry on its own, and it got reinfected quite a lot of the times. It takes a while for that layer of cells to completely dry off, to seal itself pretty much. So if I help it out with cinnamon grounds, which creates a crust, pretty much a seal on that cut area, I am preventing almost 100% of other pathogens taking the opportunity to infect my orchid. For flower spikes, I personally do not use cinnamon. I find that they are very, very woody and very tough. They don't usually get infected after we cut them. But for leaves, and especially orchids with succulent leaves such as Phalaenopsis, I always use cinnamon powder whenever I make a cut, and I always advise anybody to do so because really it makes a difference. I don't think I've ever had a reinfection of the leaf if I used that seal of cinnamon there. And cinnamon is very affordable, very common. Any type of ground cinnamon will do the job and will make your orchid smell like cookies. Next up, bamboo skewers. Yes, I know. Bamboo skewers. They are so incredibly helpful from making the potting mix fall in place by wiggling it in the pot, to actually serving as a stake for smaller flower spikes, to serving as a tool to get into some crevices and remove some pests, from using it as a pollinator, which I actually did recently. I'm trying to get some seeds and actually sow them in the agar medium. Different story. This thing has so many uses. Now, obviously for bigger flower spikes, a proper stake is what you need. But for very tiny and very flimsy flower spikes, you can always use a bamboo skewer as a stake. Now, yes, in humidity, it will start to create some molds, but I've never had issues with those grayish molds. They kind of disappear in time, and yes, the bamboo gets really darkened with time, but that's okay. I've never had issues with the roots and these bamboo skewers, and they're just so versatile. You can even use them as a rhizome clip if you don't have the clip on top of the medium. They have so many uses. I always have a full jar of them. You can see around me. And again, you can find them at the supermarket. And especially if you have tiny plants, you might actually not need those big stakes. You can actually really do great with these. Maybe for mini phalaenopsis, these are perfect. Next up, wax. Wax is a sealant, but we're not gonna seal off leaves or flower spikes or anything of the sorts with it. In certain situations, we are forced to cut stems, bottom stems actually, on monopodial orchids, which can grow tall, such as vandas or vendaceous type orchids. Whenever we try to seal off something that will be under the surface, so in the potting mix, in humidity, cinnamon will not do the job because it will just flow away in the water as you water. And as long as cinnamon is wet, it's not really doing a good job. Cinnamon is used to further dry and keep the area dry. So what we use is a wax dip. So you can use these little candles, let them burn for a little while and accumulate some liquid wax, and just then dip the stem into them. I also have used hot glue in the past, but wax is a little bit more environmentally friendly, so definitely you can use wax if you have candles. Personally, don't have too many candles. This is the only one that I found. So if you don't have a candle, you can seal off that stem with hot glue. But wax is also good, and it actually has been used for decades at least with cut stems. So it's not something new. It's just something that maybe you didn't know about, and now you do. Cutting stems is not something common, but sometimes we must, particularly when we have a portion of the stem bare or with dead roots or just not needed anymore. We need to seal off that stem because it might actually get infected if we pot it without a seal. Next up, scissors, any household scissors. Now, yes, when it comes to very, very thick flower spikes or even summer roots, it is far better to use something like this. This will make life a lot easier, and particularly very large phalaenopsis, they can have a very woody flower spike, so something like this is needed. But for leaves, in pretty much all cases, you will need a scissors because you have better control. It has a longer blade, so you can make a much cleaner cut. Particularly if you don't want to show that the leaf has been cut, you can cut it at an angle. It's really hard to do it with this thing. Scissors will always do a much better and much cleaner job. And it is important to remove that infected portion of the leaf properly and make a clean cut so that pathogens don't find crevices to reinfect the leaf. If your orchid has very thin flower spikes, you can definitely use scissors for that as well, or for roots, of course. So whatever the case, it is great to have a scissors around, and with leaves, I would not use anything other than a scissors. These are too much. They don't allow for too much flexibility and maneuverability, as it were. These are much better for leaves. Next up, lemon juice. Yes, squeezed lemon will help you remove some salt stains from your orchid's leaves. Particularly when you purchase orchids, you might have noticed some of them might have a lot of staining on the leaves, or sometimes maybe a milkish film on top of the leaves. Yeah, that can be from hard water or fertilizers. Or if you yourself have hard water and sometimes you have some staining on the leaf, well, you can easily remove it with lemon juice because it is an acid and it will remove anything that has to do with limescale deposit. And not only on the leaves you can use it, but you can also use it on the pot. I would definitely stay away from the roots. It's a little too acidic. I've never tried to do anything for the roots with lemon juice, so beware. It might cause some damage, so just put lemon juice on a cotton pad or a cotton ball and just swipe the leaf. Make sure you don't swipe underneath the leaf, there's no need, only the surface of the leaf, and that will leave it much, much, much cleaner than before. And it will not damage the orchid as long as you don't use it excessively, you don't let it drip, and you just use it on the leaves. Next up, dish soap. Any kind of dish soap will really help you out. First of all, washing the pots is really easy with dish soap, and in the vast majority of cases, it is all that you need. If you feel like you have some really serious ailments with your orchids, you can use bathroom cleaners, which have a little bit of bleach. But overall, for just maintaining and sanitizing the pots in between orchids or plants, dish soap is pretty much all you need. It will do a great job. I personally don't have issues with it. Furthermore, dish soap is a great surfactant for homemade insecticidal solutions. Homemade insecticidal solutions usually work with oil. We're gonna get to that. Oil doesn't dissolve well in water, so we need a bit of a surfactant to make that mixture a little bit more mixable. And for that, we use soap. Soap itself doesn't really have a major effect on pests. I know because I've used it. And I know that some will say, yes, a soapy solution is all you need. I personally do not agree because I've had so many pests and I did so many experiments, and I can tell you soap alone does nothing. Unless you just have 2-3 pests, but I had serious infestation. So I would not use it as an insecticide itself mixed with water. I don't think it will yield the greatest results, but in conjunction with oil, it is perfect. So dish soap, whatever kind you have, is what you need to sanitize pots, and sometimes even tools, that's okay, but it's much easier to just spray some alcohol on the scissors, right? You can also sanitize them with dish soap and a little sponge, just so you know. Next, since we talked about it, the best friend of dish soap is paraffin oil or baby oils using paraffin oil. Paraffin oil is a mineral oil. It is not a vegetable oil, and it is much lighter, and it evaporates much faster than a vegetable oil. Again, I tested it, and I will link the video of that test down below. I personally am not a fan of vegetable oils, be it neem oil, be it canola oil or other vegetable oils, be it olive oil. I heard some people use olive oil. Oh, I used it, such a horrible mess. So I personally would not recommend, because of my own experience, vegetable oil, but I will always and forever use paraffin oil, which can be found in baby oil form or paraffin oil as it is at the pharmacy if you have it. This is a very old bottle, but it has been well used, as you can see. So what we do is mix paraffin oil with water and dish soap, and then we use it as an insecticide, particularly for spider mites, which do not respond well to other insecticides. They're a different kind of pest. I do have a video explaining how I prepare the solution. Check it down below in the description. Not gonna go into the details, but it is a very useful, again, household item that has saved me personally from one of the biggest sorrows in my orchid hobby, the spider mites. And for many pests, oil solutions are absolutely fantastic. There's a reason why I'm sticking to it. Next up, makeup brushes. Maybe some that are not so good and you're not using anymore. What can we do with the makeup brush? We can remove the dust from our orchids. Let's say we don't want to shower the orchids because maybe it's winter, or maybe we're prone to having crown and rot issues due to excessive humidity and the way that we grow orchids. How can we clean our orchids without wetting them? With a fluffy makeup brush. I think this brush is 15 years old. Oh my goodness. I've always used this brush. And just go ahead and swipe away all of the dust on your orchid. Now, this is particularly useful on those orchids which have more of a velvety leaf, such as jewel orchids. Hold on. So these guys, yes, this has a very long flower spike. Flowers are not very beautiful though. It's the leaves that we're interested in. So if we have a lot of dust on these leaves, it's not as easy to just get a wet wipe and remove the dust because they're velvety, they're not glossy like this one. So a brush will work much better on velvety leaves, and actually on any plant with leaves that are fuzzy, such as African violets. This does such a great job, and the leaves become so shiny if you use this. Try it out. And it's the same with orchids that might have this beautiful velvet on their leaves. But definitely you can use the brush on any orchid. Mind you, if your orchid has pests, you can transfer the pests with the brush. So you have to be a little careful with that. And make sure your collection does not have pests, because in this way you can share a lot of pests in between orchids. Thing is, if you have pests on one orchid, you probably have pests on every orchid. That's kind of how it goes. But if your collection is pest-free, this is a great little tool to clean your orchids. Alrighty guys, so these have been the 10 household items that I have been using for many years with my orchids, and they really help me out. And if used correctly, I do believe they can make a difference in your orchid hobby. Now, you might know there are some other things that other people are using. If there is something I did not mention in today's video, it is because I am uncomfortable to share that. And it just means I don't use them because I don't think they're useful. And some of them I think are downright detrimental. So if I didn't mention it, it's because I don't use it, and I do not want to recommend anybody using it because I don't trust it. But with the stuff that I talked about, I will try to link you more information down below. I realize that I don't necessarily have specific videos dedicated to each product. Maybe I will do. If you guys want me to, I'll take hydrogen peroxide and talk 1 hour about it. Well, not maybe 1 hour, but make a super dedicated video about it with uses, concerns, addressing all of those things. I will do that, but wherever I have more information, I'll be sure to link it down below. My experience, my experiments. Some videos are very old, excuse the cringe, but yeah. Anyway, so with that said, let's end it here. Thank you so much. I really hope this video helps you out. It helped me out, especially at the beginning when I didn't have a lot of money for orchids or possibilities to order products and so on. And I really do hope they will help you out as well. Thank you, rePotme, for sponsoring yet another episode and for giving me the liberty to actually talk truly about the stuff that I experience and that I care about. So with that said, let's end it here. Hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.